Hello everyone, and welcome to the penultimate webinar of our summer school series. And I'm really excited and happy to have Cindy Engel here with me this evening. And I'm just going to embarrass her by putting a picture up. Here she is. Okay, Cindy is not only a Shiatsu practitioner and a Qigong teacher. She's also a biologist, a lecturer, a researcher, and an author, and I can prove that because I've got a book right here, Wild Health, which is a best-selling book. In fact, it's probably one of the very few books about self-medicating animals. It's a fascinating book. She's pretty famous for her work on somatic empathy, and tonight we're going to be mainly discussing how we get information from when we do diagnosis in Shiatsu and lots of other interesting stuff around that. So thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Brilliant. Look, we've got loads of people from all over the world. America, I can see already, south of France, Finland, Ireland, even North Norfolk. So there we are.
Someone from Clyde.
Yeah, from Clyde. Yeah, Rachel from Clyde. So hello, everyone. Please do post on the chat. Just let us know where you're from. We have got a really big international spread there already, just with the first few posts. Okay, so without further ado, let's start the presentation, and here we are. So do you want to just make a little introduction, Cindy, about where does this work come from?
The topic tonight is really, I've got that echo going on.
Okay, I'll turn my volume down a bit more. Yeah, go on.
The topic tonight is coming from this idea of connections, and I've been interested in how we get information from our clients from, the very early days of being one of your Shiatsu students, because, coming to Shiatsu after being a biologist, I wasn't really expecting to feel what I was feeling when I was dealing with people. So it came as a shock and a surprise, and then I wanted to find out what does science think about this, and so it has been about 20 years of keeping my eye on what's going on in the research as to how do we get information from our clients. And the idea is basically if we're going to do a diagnosis, we need to have information about them, and I know not everyone works from the sort of diagnosis and treatment plan. Some people work in an open way, but if we are going to do a Hara diagnosis, we do need to gain information from them. So this little talk tonight is giving you some theory about how we get information about our clients, and then we've got two practicals, two little exercises that are quite fun in the middle, and lots of time for questions, I hope.
Brilliant. Yeah. Okay, did you want me to do the slides for you?
Next slide, please.
Okay.
So the diagnosis and assessment, we need information. So we're going to talk about what information is available and how we access it, basically how we connect with our client. So next slide, please. So I'm going to get a bit cosmic straight away in that on the left-hand side of this diagram, it says there's infinite information. And what I mean by that is that, we do, according to physicists, we live in an infinite number of parallel universes with parallel time. There is an infinite amount of information out there. And we, as a species, have species-specific limitation on what we can sense. So we only pick up what humans can pick up. Yeah, we only take out of that infinite information what humans have got the sensory capabilities to do. So we're really limiting down to just species-specific information. And physicists are very excited at the moment about the idea that each species only detects the information that is relevant to their survival and nothing else.
Okay.
So it always reminds me, I'm a bit of a Trekkie, a bit of a Star Trek fan. It always reminds me of the Borg, because the Borg will walk past people unless you are a threat to them, in which case they hone in on you, And
yes.
apparently we're all a bit like that, in that we don't pick up information unless it's relevant to some, you know, deep, distant part of our survival program. Anyway, then we filter it down again into individual variations. So some of us are better than others at being able to sense information. But this last bit, attention, is what's really caught my attention, because it's so important at directing things like somatic empathy, and things like what we actually perceive comes down to how we can manipulate our attention. So what attention does is focus our perception only on what's meaningful to us, what's relevant to us. And this is completely unconscious. We don't have to do it consciously. So next slide, please.
Okay, but can I just ask you a little bit about that, about attention, because in a way that it is unconscious most of the time, but that is one thing that through the traditional arts is developed, isn't it? When you think about meditative practice, qigong, or any sort of self-development, especially sort of Asian self-development, you could say that a lot of it really is training, focusing the attention, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, they hit on the importance of training your attention. And you know, what seems to have been done in the West is we just use it as a way of relaxing ourselves, but actually it's a way of filtering reality. You know,
Yes.
Where you put your attention dictates what your reality is.
And that's a massive topic in the information age as well, because there's so much talk now, isn't there, about, well, when you think about Facebook and Twitter, I mean, you've got probably some of the cleverest people in the planet being paid a lot of money to basically steal the attention of people in order to, you know, for profit. That's totally. A massive issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying to you the other day about Yuval Harari, I can never pronounce his name, who wrote Sapiens. He reckons that, you know, the best thing we can do to save ourselves is to learn to regulate our own attention, because once it's stolen, and our reality is then manipulated for us. Anyway, let's not get this.
Just what I just put that in. Okay.
So we have what neuroscientists call adaptive ignorance, which is basically we don't know most of what is going on around us. And we've got this tiny little reality amongst all these infinite possibilities. Next slide, please. And it's worth remembering that our perception is not reality. I know that's him, Yuval Noah Harari.
Yes, Dinah's put us right there.
Yeah. So he's one of our big thinkers of the time, and he says, you know, the most important thing we can do to protect ourselves is not dig ourselves a bunker and get a gun, but basically learn to control your attention. Yeah. So perception's not reality, and we're going to see that when we do the exercises, we do the practicals, is change the perception, and it changes our experience of reality. But I guess what they mean by this is that there aren't really trees and buildings and houses and human beings and animals wandering around. What there are collections of energy of different densities and vibrations, and that our sensory system turns it into these solid separate objects. But that is not what reality is really like. Yeah.
No.
And it's worth remembering that, isn't it, when you're putting your hand on someone's hara.
Yeah.
I just delve into the cosmos here. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's true. And I think that's kind of reassuring in a way, because when you do get into energy work and you do start to get perceptions that you're not normally familiar with, that it's an interesting, and it makes you more secure to realize that you're not going crazy, basically. That actually that's what it's really like.
Yes, it could be that it's more real than your sensory perception, rather than, you know, you've lost it and it's gone a bit unreal. Okay. So a little statement which I thought was really good at the time is that we don't passively receive information and then turn it into something in our head. You know, so we don't just put our hand on a person's hara and receive information which we then interpret. That's kind of what we think we do. No. But what we're actually doing is we're as it says, natural cognitive systems, so thinking systems, participate in the generation of meaning. So what we do is we enact our perception as we're working around the Hara. We are engaged, we're participating in the creation of what we feel and what we perceive. So we're not passively just receiving information from them.
No. It reminds me a little bit of what they call in philosophy of science theory dependence of observations. You know, not only it's not just what you actually observe, but also how you interpret it depends on the theory you have.
Yes,
you know,
totally. Yeah.
So,
and I mean, I haven't got the reference here, but there's some research to show that what we see has far more to do with all those past experiences and beliefs than what is actually in front of our eyes.
Yes. I think we've all had that experience where we've seen something we expect to see, and then when we look at it more closely, it changes. It could be words, or it could be an object, and then you realise that it isn't what you expected to see at all. And it's because your mind is actively creating that reality around you in a very dynamic way, in a very direct way all the time.
Yeah, and that's what we do when we're connecting with clients, is we're forming perceived ideas about them based on our own stuff all the time, you know. So it's my Hara reading is all about is all about me.
Yes. Well, we hope not all about it. That there's certainly a big part of that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yes, it's like an interactive thing, you know. That's right. And I suppose that also, you see, that's another fascinating thing, I think, Cindy, because, and this is this personally is why I absolutely love your work, is because we were all taught how to do shiatsu and energy work through the lineage, which obviously goes back hundreds and if not thousands of years. And there are so many specific techniques that we're taught. And the thing about it is that, okay, think about all the things that we do, like alignment, clearing our energy field, quietening our own field down, and all that. That's all part of that process and also the whole thing about knowing oneself, you know, so that you can, again, make a distinction between what's information from the client. I know that in a way is impossible, at some level is impossible, but at least it gives you some kind of handle on that.
And knowing where your attention is and what your intentions are. No, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. It does all start to come together, which is very nice. Yeah.
And next month, actually, I'm planning a big 40th and 20th, because next month is the 40th year of me doing shiatsu and the 20th year of new energy work. So I thought we'd have a whole month of retrospectives and everything. And one of the things I'd like to do is I'd like to look back and just chart just some of the ways that we now know so much more about why we do stuff. Because when I think back to the early 80s, you know, it was all counterculture, it was all totally weird stuff, you know, but you just had to have faith in that lineage. And I think that's the thing, is if you have a really solid lineage behind you, you've got all those generations of people, you've got that solidity there. But certainly in terms of Western thought, it was all completely nuts what we were doing. And that has totally changed in the last 40 years. It's completely changed.
And it's really taken off now. I would say in the last 5 years, you know, I don't know what's happened in the last 5 years in neuroscience, but they've just suddenly gone into attention and intention, like they've just discovered it, you know.
All right, really, yeah. It's all terribly new and exciting for those that we did hang on in the East for like a few thousand years. But
next slide, please.
It's like one of my clients, I was seeing a client today on this very mat, you know, she was lying there, she was going, how does that work? How does it work? I said, I could tell you, but it's going to take quite a long time. She said, I don't care. But all I can do is I just feel completely different now. And I just said to her, well, they've been developing it for several thousand years. There's got to be something in it.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? But it's, Can I have the next slide, please?
There we go.
Okay. So this takes us back to what you were saying, is that, you know, we create what we expect to see. And then, so this story of two hikers walking along, and there's a coiled rope next to the path. One of them jumps into the air because he interprets the coiled rope as a snake because he was bitten by a snake recently. The other hiker sees it as a rope because it is a rope and he's not been attacked by a snake. And so you can see how these things are embedded because of, through natural selection. It's adaptive to react to something that looks like a snake if you've been attacked by a snake in the past, and so your history, your stuff comes out. And this person would swear blind it was a snake. It had a head, it had a tongue, all this sort of stuff. And so perception is completely dictated by your history. And the other thing is perception is dictated by your intention. What do you want? What is your aim? And a really simple version of this, we do it all the time, is like, well, we don't do it now, but when we're kids, it's like, let's count all the red cars on a journey. So your search engine is red cars, and you will see lots and lots of red cars that you didn't see before. And we'll get to why that is in a minute when we look at pre-attentive changes. But that's what we've got this search engine, and it finds what we're looking for. And then people are surprised that they're constantly coming across just what they needed, just at the right time. And it's not a surprise. It's your unconscious search engine is finding what you want. Now, the other thing it does is it will look for meaning all the time. Your unconscious will try and put meaning onto stuff, whether it's got meaning or not. So, the common thing is that you see a funny face in a cloud. I've got a friend who slightly lost it and sees crucifixes everywhere, but
Oh, really?
But yeah, it's putting meaning into things that she's perceiving, and that's what we do all the time. So neuroscientists are saying, okay, perception's about it's participation, but it's about finding meaning and relevance, and that's all it's for. Next slide, please. So here's the really interesting bit, because you probably know all that stuff that I've been telling you so far, but now comes some new stuff, which is that there's a really serious field of research looking at what's called immediate awareness. And this means that before your attention shifts, some part of your mind already knows everything. And it will then steer your attention to the thing that is relevant for you. And it will also select which sensory receptors to boost and make more sensitive, and which sensory receptors to switch off. Now, this is really important because if you're going to do a Hara diagnosis, or you're going to do any diagnosis on a client, if you want to do a visual diagnosis, then obviously all this priming system in the pre-attentive phase is going to need to prime your visual perceptual system to find information. But if you're going to have just your hand on them and feel it, then your pre-attentive cognition needs to organize yourself completely differently so that you can feel in your body what's going on. So this stage is where it all goes on. This is before attention moves. And by that, I mean, if I hear a bird outside my window, my attention turns to the bird. I've heard the bird, my attention shifts. But what we're going to see is that something happens before even the bird sings. So let's have the next slide, please. Oh, we're not quite there yet, are we? Experiments show that not just the brain, but the entire body-brain system hones in on indicators long before the person is aware of doing so. Yeah, okay, that's just a...
Wow. So yeah, that's the same kind of thing again, isn't it?
But we talk...
It's an interesting thing, because I've had that with advanced students. What they often say to me is, when they've been doing like Hara diagnosis or any type of energy work diagnosis for a long time, they report this experience where they will just sit next to the client, and even before they've analyzed it or they've even thought about what they're doing, they somehow get that, they just somehow have the information there already.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what it's looking like now, is that there's this immediate awareness, which then gets filtered for like what's relevant. Your attention gets geared towards it so that you can study it more and decide whether it is
Right.
relevant. And then the last person to know is you cognitively working it
Right.
out and becoming aware of it. So you're absolutely the last
Right.
person to know, but your body has done all the shifting and the organization and sorted the senses out and turned the attention. And it's like,
Do you know, that's so interesting, because I'm just think that, do you know what that's really reminded me of? That's reminded me about Pauline Sasaki's method of teaching teaching Hara Diagnosis, which was basically, it was a ritualized form, but she emphasized not processing or doing anything consciously during it, and it was all done on reflection. So you do, I mean, it was like when I was apprenticing with her, by that time it was all just etheric Hara Diagnosis. So essentially it was just alignment, clearing, scanning, and but that would not be a processing stage. That the process came afterwards, where you reflected back on it, and that sounds very close to what
I
you're
mean, I'm interested
talking
in the
about.
difference between somatic empathy and cognitive empathy, because somatic empathy is when your body feels what someone else is feeling, and the cognitive empathy is when you work it out. Oh, she must feel terrible because she's lost her brother. That must be awful, So I'm interested in the differences, and they have different neurological pathways, but the somatic comes first, and
The somatic
the
is
cognitive
first.
comes afterwards. But most of us don't notice the somatic. We only notice the, oh dear, how awful,
Yes.
And so I'm delving into like, well, where does that separation happen? How can I get to this bit, and how can
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's so interesting. It's so interesting, and I think, well, I was meeting up with the whole team last week, and I was talking about the rehearsal we had, and about what we were talking about, and I just think it's just moving forwards with Shiatsu in terms of training, to have all this actually sorted out and separated as much as we can, has got a fantastic potential for making the training so much more understandable and breaking it down, so that you can trust.
Sort of
I think a lot of it is trusting
experience, and then just bung this theory in.
Yeah.
To solve that problem of the different ways people take in information differently.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Next slide, please.
Next slide.
So I'll explain this. This is one of the experiments that proves that we have this immediate awareness that happens before our attention is even shifted. So in this experiment, we've got people being shown flashcards on a screen, and they're shown either an angry face or a fearful face. Now, what happens is that we look away. We automatically look away from angry faces. It's an instinctive response. We don't want to threaten people who are angry. We look away, but we look towards scared faces. It's the opposite. They're sort of inbuilt, very, very rapid responses. Now, what's interesting is that when you record people's eye movements, their eyes move in the correct direction, either towards or away, before they see the face. And so they know that something has immediate awareness of the emotional face that's coming. And the person is the last to know. They will report, oh, that's an angry face, or oh, that's a fearful face, seconds after. And seconds is a long time in neurobiology. They deal in milliseconds for this, milliseconds for that, and it is only a matter of milliseconds. But it's milliseconds before they can possibly have seen the face. The eyes have already moved towards or away, depending on whether it's angry or fearful. And there's lots of these experiments, and they're very, very subtle, and scientists don't really know what to make of it. So they've come up with this idea that there is an immediate awareness of some kind. And it's new and it's exciting because, it fits in with what lots of people have known for a long time. The body knows before you do. and so on. So,
but what possible mechanism? I can't understand how there can be any possible mechanism, Cindy, that can happen. How?
well,
It's almost like telepathy, isn't it? Like, or prescience, isn't it? Like prescience, like knowing what's going to happen.
You're going to love it because it's quantum biology.
All right. Okay.
That's what, you know, I say it's quantum biology. That's the only idea they've got at the moment. And they're doing the experiments on birds. And yeah, it's far too complicated for me to explain the experiment because it's, involved a lot of heavy physics. But basically, they've identified a molecule that responds when it's entangled and can maintain coherence in a biological fluid. Anyway, you know all this stuff.
Yes.
But yeah, that's what they're assuming. It must be an example of quantum biology. But another few years till we get that. But I suppose what we need to know is that our body is responding before our attention, and that's what steers our attention, is that the body knows something, and that's why your attention shifts. And then you start the processing, and then you start making the cognitive, assessments and everything. So you're literally the last to know what your mind is doing.
I think we've all had that experience though, haven't we, where we've just placed our hand on the heart or something and suddenly it was an experience like that made me invent the whole body scanning technique, really, because I literally was just practicing, doing the alignment like Pauline told me, not really knowing why. And then one day I put my hand on someone's hara and I could just, before I could even process it, I just had this feeling of this liver energy in their body. And I had no idea how that happened at all. And it was only through years and years of trying to recreate that experience that led me into making it more consistent and everything. But that experience, I can still remember it now, right now. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I mean, that experience was so strong. It was pre any mind thing or anything, you know what I mean?
And what they're trying to do is work out, is it actually immediate or is it just very, very quick? And
I see.
That's still up for grabs, that answer.
Right. Okay, here we go. So next slide. Oh, we've got the polls. We're getting into the practical now. Excellent. Okay, so here we are. We've got some polls for you just to we've got 3 polls, everyone, just to get you thinking about your own work. And then Cindy's got a couple of really, really interesting practical exercises. I've had a preview of them and I can tell you they are really good. I can't wait to do them again. So how would you rate your understanding of how you get information in your diagnosis? You're doing Hara Diagnosis or whatever diagnosis you do, but if you had to explain to someone how it all works, how would you rate your understanding? Very good, neutral, not sure, no idea. I think I'll probably put myself as neutral here, but anyway. Here we are. How would you rate your understanding of how you get information in your diagnosis? Let's run the poll and see. We've got some very confident people who have already put very good and good.
Yeah, but then they changed their mind.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, probably by the end of the webinar, I'll probably just redo it. Okay, look, we've got pretty much a normal distribution bell curve there, I think, pretty much. We've got, most people are fairly neutral, and we've got pretty much a perfect distribution there.
The question sort of fits more to like understanding within your conceptual framework, within your model of Hara Diagnosis, you understand it really well. But if you had to explain how it works, then you'd have no idea. So.
Okay, so this is another interesting question that Cindy and I talked about when we did the rehearsal. We'd like to put this to you, is when you do your diagnosis, do you ask specific questions about your client and wait for a response?
Yeah, so not asking your client questions, but just asking yourself.
No. Right, asking yourself questions like, are they blah, 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 blah. Okay, ready for this one? Let's just find out what you think about this one.
So, for example, do you ask how they're feeling emotionally today?
Yeah, do you ask the energy field of ask it questions? Yeah, do you say, yeah, exactly,
wait for a
yeah,
response.
yeah.
And
Yeah. Okay. And look, most people.
And it varies, of course, doesn't it? Because sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I work. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So we've got like a good majority there, 62%. And finally, okay, if you do ask specific questions, this is a very interesting question. If you do ask a specific question about your client, how do you expect to receive the answer to your question? In other words, what kind of information? Images, and we put just a few, we only had 5, so we had to think of the 5 options. So we went with images, sounds, feelings, just knowing, okay, or other. So I'll run that poll
it's going to depend, isn't it? It's going to have loads. Well, it's going to depend. I mean, sometimes I get loads, sometimes I have one. Yeah.
Of course, yeah, but just generally, how do you feel? Let's just see generally. See if just to see if there's a
combination. I think is coming up.
Combination is probably the most common thing, yeah. But it's interesting that we've got a few very visual or auditory, but just feelings, which would be more the somatic empathy, I imagine, area, is the single. Almost the single most popular one, except for just knowing, and that's that knowing thing that you were talking about before, wasn't it?
Well, this is good. You'd expect this from Shiatsu practitioners, wouldn't you?
Yes.
We would hope that
is feeling and knowing. Feeling and knowing. Okay, great. So I can't wait now. Should we go on to the exercises?
I expect them to write me a full report. Yes, let's go on to the next one. Practice.
Here we go. The polls were really designed as a warm-up, really, just to get you thinking about how you process information. And now we've got the exercises coming up, and I've got my notepad here just in case I want to write anything down. But a lot of it's just experiencing, and I'll just put the slide in. Okay, so here you go.
There's two exercises, and we're going to set ourselves up in the same way. The first one, I've got this echo going on. I don't know if it's happening for everybody. The first one will be familiar to you all because it's just playing with attention and changing the quality of our attention and noticing how it changes the information that we get. And I'm sure you've all done that in your training or in your experience, but we'll just go through it again because it's a warm-up for the next exercise, which is slightly more novel, I expect, for some of you. Yeah. So let's get ourselves set up, as Cliff said, the idea of this getting yourself aligned is that you are somatically as neutral as possible. So what I mean by that is the back of my neck is nice and long, my shoulders are hanging down, nothing is squashed or crimped, my chest is open, my pelvis is open, and there's no pressure on any of the large nerves. None of the big arteries are squashed. So all this means that the physical and interoceptive information you're going to get is quite neutral, or as neutral as you can get. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now what we're going to do, I'm going to ask you to shift qualities of your attention. So the first thing I want you to do is to take your attention to your entire skin. So this is a really broad attention. And just notice what information you get by putting your attention on your entire skin. I'm interested in how it feels for you because I'm interested in the somatic response. And now we're going to shrink our attention to just our top lip. I want you to notice how that changes the information that you get. Okay, now we're going to compare moving attention versus static attention. So we've compared broad and focused, and now we're going to look at moving versus static. So to start with, I want you to pay attention to the movement of air in and out of your body. I want you to follow the movement of air in and out of your body. Put your attention on the movement of air. And now, slightly tricky for some people, keep your attention static in your throat and notice the air going past. So your attention is in one place and the air is going past it. Okay, now you're going to pay attention, put your attention in your right hand, and I want you to have a very soft inquiry about your right hand. You're just casually interested. You're not deeply invested in feeling your right hand, but you're casually interested. And notice how that feels when you have a sort of casual attention in your right hand. And now it's really important that you understand as much as you can about your right hand. Very, very important. And your attention is now intense. And let that dissipate. Okay, and just give yourselves a little shake and a wiggle to come out of that. So a very sort of quick tour through what's called qualities of attention. And each one of those qualities will produce different information for you. And it's worth knowing, it's worth reminding ourselves that the information, the sensory information is exactly the same. And all you've done is shift the location and the quality and the aperture of your attention, and you've got completely different feedback. I presume you get different information. I do, but
Yeah, I did. It was very dramatic, I thought, you know. But the interesting thing I found was that when I was doing the skin thing, I felt all over the skin, but then I felt a kind of tingling and slight tightness here. And then when I was concentrating on my lip, I couldn't hold the attention there because it kept going to the tingly feeling in my head, you know what I mean? So that was interesting.
That's too true.
And the other thing was that it was very interesting to contrast the movement and the
Holding.
You're holding, yeah. But the most dramatic was that really made me think about the hand, because I couldn't help asking myself, you know, because of the whole quantum thing about, you know, observation and changing things and stuff. I couldn't work out, and probably it's impossible to tell, I couldn't work out whether my hand felt different the second time because I was concentrating on it, or whether it was like that before and I was only picking up the information because I was focused on it more. You know, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, when I shifted to intense attention of my hand, I mean, I'm sure all the blood in my body went to my hand.
Yeah.
I don't think that had any.
Exactly. It felt very full, and I felt almost like pain, you know, like there, you know, like real awareness of the actual bones. And I couldn't work out whether it was just whether my hand changed because I was looking at it, which I think there was some of that, and that immediately started me thinking about what happens when in a way, I'm very aware of this because I had some very interesting sessions today. I had some very interesting, very difficult clients and some very challenging sessions. And I was put in a position where I was using a lot of attention, a lot of direction, a lot of key projection, stuff like that, and a lot of really quite strong work, because I'm getting a lot of clients who have been so stressed out by COVID, and they're in such a terrible state. I mean, I had one client today who was just so all over the place. It was like a major reconstruction work, you know, and I was just thinking about, actually, do you know what? The experience of the client must be similar to the experience I had in the hand, you know, just having that focused attention of, it doesn't have to be me, anyone who directing that caring focus must affect
it. We can't get into the observer effect, but by observing, by putting your attention, you change the nature of what you are observing. So, you know, that's what you're doing, aren't you? You're putting your attention in there with an intention in it, and it will be changed by that.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Next slide, please.
Okay. Right. Next exercise. If that wasn't exciting enough, we've got the next one coming up.
The next one is.
Okay, here we go. This is part 2.
So this is quite tricky. What we're going to do is set ourselves up again to be as neutral as possible. And then I'm going to ask you to put your attention inside your own chest. And you're going to do 3 different things. You're firstly going to look inside your chest, and then you're going to listen to your chest, and then you're going to feel inside your chest. Now, this has nothing to do with your eyes or your ears. And the reason is that what we're doing is we're setting up an intention for how we're going to receive the information. And that will do all the shifts in the system of like gearing up how we perceive visual information, how we perceive auditory information, how we perceive somatic information. And you will feel the difference in your body, I'm sure. And this is to prove to you that seeing and hearing doesn't have much to do with your eyes and your ears. It's to do with the perceptual system, system-wide, you know, body-wide.
Right.
We'll see if we can manage it anyway.
Let's do it.
So I'll talk you through it, so you don't have to have to read the screen. So if you set yourself up again with a really nice, relaxed, long spine, particularly the back of your neck, so you're not sticking your chin forward, and just let your shoulders hang, so that everything's as neutral as possible, and you're letting all your muscles hang off your bones. A little bit of active relaxation going on there, but you're not compressing, you're not sinking, you're not squashing yourself. So you're allowing a natural expansion, and this natural expansion leaves you wonderfully clear and empty, like a nice resonating drum. Okay, so we're going to set up an intention to look inside your chest. So this is your instruction, this is your goal. You're going to look inside your chest. And obviously notice what information you get and how it feels when you look inside your chest. Okay, now you're going to let that go, and I want you to notice the changes that happen when I give you the next instruction, because you could easily miss the change. So get yourself back to neutral. And this time you're going to listen to your chest. So you let that go and you put yourself back to neutral. And again, I'm going to give you an instruction, and I want you to notice how your body responds differently when it gets this instruction. So now you're going to feel inside your chest. You're going to focus on somatosensation inside your chest. And just let that go. Bring yourself back into the room. Open your eyes. Bring yourself back to neutral. I'm going to debrief on that. Now,
I just find that absolutely incredible, because it's the change in it's like a change in modality in every cell. I mean, I felt it more in my arms and my legs in a way than my chest. The difference in the way, it's so difficult to describe, but I would say that it was more of a brittle inward feeling when I was looking. When I was listening, it was more of a fluffy, more expanded thing in my whole body. And then when I was feeling, it was more of a dense thing, but it wasn't just here, it was in my whole system.
And it's because what we're doing is we're adjusting pre-attentively. So before we shift our attention, before we shift our sensory search engine, we're telling the unconscious what mode of processing we want.
It's incredible, Cindy. It's so different.
You do.
And you just wouldn't be aware of that normally, unless you had an exercise like that. I think it's absolutely amazing.
So my point of it is that if we're doing a Hara diagnosis, we need to be quite clear about how do you expect to get the answer to your question, which is why we asked in the poll. So if, for example, you expect to see colored lights or to feel heat or cold, then that's what you're going to get, because that you're setting up your sensory system, your processing to get that, and that's what you'll get. But there's all these other modalities. You can use any of your sensory modalities without the organs, without the sensory receptors, because it's the processing that you're using. Did I explain that properly?
Yeah, that's incredible. I tell you what, when I a while ago, I got into the whole synesthetic thing, synesthesia, I got interested in all of that. And I remember designing some exercises in class to get people to do a similar thing in the sense I was going to, like tune into the heart meridian. What color is it? What does it look like? What does it sound like? But I was coming more from the synesthetic then, but almost by accident, I think. It's essentially in the same zone, isn't it? It's in that zone of setting up the whole.
So you can, as you place your hand on the Hara, you can choose to do the whole Hara diagnosis as somatic empathy. So you could feel in yourself what is going on for them, or you could set it up to, I'm going to feel like a palpation. I'm going to feel a density with my hand, and it's not, not tuning into your body at all. So there's that whole thing of where are we going to hear the answer to our question? How are we going to get the answer? Where's my next slide? Have I gone? Next one. Oh, hold on. Let's go back a bit.
Okay.
What I've said at the bottom here, be mindful of hidden intentions, because they set the agenda for the connection you can have. And what I mean there is fear. If you have a belief structure, and it is, it's debatable how true it is, but if you believe that you can catch bad energy from your client, and you then try to have a connection to get a diagnosis, your search engine, your perceptual system will be looking for danger, because you have that unconscious belief that you can be harmed by catching bad energy from them. So you will only get bad energy information, and it will be embodied, and you will go home feeling like you've caught bad energy off them. And it comes from that hidden or unspoken intention that you've got to search for, the thing you believe is there, the scary thing. So that's the trick.
Again, that's a massive responsibility from the point of view of teaching, isn't it? In a way, to try and set up a safe system for the student.
You did it for me. I remind you. Because every time I touched somebody, I got completely overwhelmed by their emotions, and I was really not enjoying it. And you said, just let it pass through you, like a vibration going through a guitar string. And it was just a conceptual model for me to use that meant, okay, I can feel it and it can just pass through me. And it took the fear away. Because if the fear stays with you, then you keep embodying that information, and it will just go on and on, for days.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly it, isn't it? Yeah. And I mean, I think that was, again, a lot of it I got from Pauline, really, because first of all, she said that there's no such thing as bad energy. There's just misplaced energy. There's no judgment on it. And that was really kind of drummed into me. And the other thing was basically the whole idea of the alignment and the clearing thing is and again, I just can't believe it, Tilly. Pretty much every moment of this webinar, I'm just having massive great aha moment, light bulbs. Because now I realise that that's what we're doing when we set up the alignment, and we have this like model of our own energy system being like a resonant string. I think of it like that. So in other words, you have some energy pattern out there, it resonates with you, but it doesn't become you. It can just pass by you, and you can get back into your own clear space again. And that was how I was taught. And now I can see why.
I mean, stuff still does stick, but that's because we haven't got pure unconscious, intentions. There's all sorts of stuff running around.
No, and that's when you need therapy yourself, because the things that stick to you are things that maybe you've got some fear in yourself and some childhood thing or something like that. But that's all part of the responsibility of the healer to work on their own system, isn't it?
Okay, I'll have the next slide, please.
Okay, sorry, I'm just getting too excited.
So, because we could pick up anything, we need a framework. There's a plethora, I love that word, there's a plethora of complex information available from our client. In order to make sense of it, we need a clear conceptual framework. So the Hara is one of those frameworks. And as we were saying earlier, it's not it's a framework. And it's a really good idea to stick to one that works, because your unconscious has to get to know that framework. It has to get to, not your cognitive clever bit that you've learned, but your unconscious has to start believing the conceptual model so that it can find you the answers that you want. Next slide, please.
Can I just make one quick comment about that? Which is, that's why I think one of the genius things about Masnaga was that his experiential theory with the meridian expressions, learning the theory through body rather than the mind. Absolutely brilliant. And again, another big aha moment. I can see why now, know. Okay, this is it. This is the last slide.
Last slide. And what does it say? When you sense the Hara to make a diagnosis, your unconscious needs clear guidance. What information you're searching for, what senses to use, and what's relevant to you. Makes it sound really busy, but you've got the teaching. You teach people how to read it, but it's just to trust that, as we were saying before, it's to trust that your Hara diagnosis is your personal interaction with that person based on all your perceptual processes. It's
Exactly. It's an interactive thing, and that's another big responsibility in teaching, and that's when in the late 90s with Pauline, developed some advanced teacher training, because what you don't want is the teacher going, oh no, you've got the Hara wrong.
No.
You know, I picked up this, and you go, no, that's wrong. Get out of the way. Right, this is the right one.
And I used to have people say to me, oh, well, you know, a scientific exploration of the Hara would be that 10 people would all find the same thing. No, they wouldn't. No. They wouldn't all find the same thing, because there's this participation in perception.
It's an interactive thing, yeah. The story I was saying is, if you ask, you know, if 10 people ask you, people ask you, how are you? If 10, you know, and would you give them the same answer? You wouldn't, because it's an interactive thing. Some people you'd say honestly that you had difficulties. Other people say, oh, I'm fine.
That's good. So, So my conclusion is that the model is not that important on its own. It's really how you relate to that model. And I'm ending with a real sort of throwaway that probably we want to talk about a lot more, is that it kind of works better if the model is culturally embedded, you know, if it has tradition. And I think this is something to do with this immediate awareness thing of like, have unconsciousnesses got used to this model? Do they know how it works, you know? So
right, yeah.
The group mind and all that.
Brilliant. Yeah.
So there we go. We've got
absolutely.
3 whole minutes for questions. Sorry, I meant to.
Yeah, we've got one person. I'm just going to put this up. This is Mark. It's more really, it's about attention, going back to that attention, the commodification of attention. Marx was also aware of that, which I didn't know, actually. Also, in the last 20 years, Western thinkers now get this, starting with Thomas Keating. There's concern on how to reconfigure our attention so we can experience and live life.
Yeah, I think it's a massive issue for us. I mean, I have kids in their 30s, and it's just full time attention being owned by a massive American corporation.
And do you know what? I think that's one of the reasons why people love Shiatsu so much, doing it and receiving it, because it just gives you a break from that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a kinesthetic thing.
It's the same with.
It takes you into your body awareness.
In the Tai Chi classes, we reckon that you could just ask people to lie down for an hour.
Yeah.
You don't.
It's the same with Qigong. I mean, Qigong, you think about yoga, Qigong, mindfulness, meditation, all those things. I mean, Shiatsu is just part of a massive sort of counterbalance to that. And it, you know, that's why I think one of the reasons why it's just so important that, you know, that it spreads, you know, and we've had that with in so many different things, and, you know, like working with. The thing I find the most encouraging thing is when you get young kids in and you get them away from their phones. They're on the futon, and, you know, you can actually. And I find that I actually talk to my very young clients more than I do my older clients. I actually say, look, I need your help here. Can you feel this? You know, can you feel this connection? They go, oh,
we got a good.
And suddenly you're taking them on a completely different journey inside their body, and it's a massive revelation.
This is an interesting question. Would you say the client's system has already unconsciously decided what information it wants to present to this particular practitioner? And I would say yes. What would you say?
Right. Okay. Here we go. I'll just put this up. Here we go. Would you say the client's system has already unconsciously decided what information it wants to present to this particular practitioner? Yes. Sometimes it does. Yeah, it does do that. Yeah. And it's an interactive thing. Again, it's an interactive vibrational thing between you and the client.
And don't you find yourself that, you know, your client won't be sharing anything if they're new to you, and then after a few minutes, suddenly there's a release. There's a trust. You know, the trust has opened up and it's gone, okay.
Yeah, and you can get that within a session. Sometimes I get nothing in the Hara. I'll say, okay, fair enough. I'll walk down to the feet, go back, and suddenly they've opened up. Just like if you're having a conversation with them, really. Wouldn't you say that attention, Alex says, wouldn't you say that attention is key? That's a very big question to end on. No. It's a different thing, isn't it?
And they very closely follow each other. You know, if you
Mind leads the key. Key leads the blood.
Yeah.
Cindy, we've got to finish up. I've got a handout which I'm going to send, which is just a PDF of the handout. If you'd like to download that, and also I've got links to Cindy's website. She's writing an amazing book. Diane's already started reading it. I know it's going to be absolutely incredible. I can't wait to read it myself. I just want to say a massive thank you, Cindy. As you can see, it's just so exciting for me to experience some of this. I really, and I think I'm just going to say that on behalf of the whole Shiatsu community, it's just so valuable what you're doing. It really is. It really is. And I'm sure, here we go. We're going to get lots of hearts in the chat. I know you don't like to be too softly, Cindy, but I'm going to put one in there. They're all streaming in. You can always put a clapping hand if you like.
You've got me going.
And I think, Hiro says, thank you very much. It was amazing. Wonderful session. Thank you so much. Okay, so don't forget, everyone, that Cindy's this video and some extra resources that she's preparing just for you will be on the online course. So don't forget to check that out. Join the online course, and we'll see you next week for the final webinar of the summer series. And I'm going to be doing a treatment on Dinah. It was the only way Dinah could get into my diary and actually have a treatment. Can you believe that? Because so busy at the moment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and build in as many of the most exciting things that have happened in the last 7 weeks. And I'm going to do it like a lab. I'm going to actually kind of try them out. So Cindy, I'm going to try out some of these exercises that we did today and just see whether I can get different information. You can follow along the session with me, and hopefully that'll open up a whole new world for your Shiatsu work. Okay, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thanks again, Cindy. I'm going to close up the session, and we'll see you next week.